Whether you're an experienced director or you're just starting out, Annie, the musical, is a great choice for most audiences. So let me help you sort out the technical and creative elements that you will need to make an excellent show. First off, here are my non-negotiables. To start with, you need to have the right casting, and that most important role, of course, the title role, is Annie. Annie has a reputation for possibly being a whiny character, but Annie is supposed to be a rough and tumble survivor. And so Annie needs to, in her sweetness, bring out a delightful sort of feeling from this child who's gone through a lot. So she's a more complex character than a lot of times people give her credit for. So it's really important that whatever Annie you choose can not only handle the singing elements of the show, but can really bring out someone who's going to delight the audience with a rough and tumble nature that melts into the affection of Daddy Warbucks. Second, let's talk about Ms. Hannigan. You'll notice that the non-negotiables that I have are mostly about casting, and that's because I think technically this show can be done a lot of different ways, a lot of creative ways. But if you don't have the right cast for this show, it will ultimately hurt the production. So I really recommend choosing a Hannigan that can also bring that complexity to the character. Hannigan is not just angry or drunk. And so I feel like that's a mistake that a lot of actors and directors make when they're portraying Hannigan. Hannigan is pathetic, but in being pathetic, she's also kind of delightful. We love to hate her because she does fly off the handle and she is cruel, but she's also someone that we can tell she had big dreams, and this is where she was left to tend to these children who really don't like her. There's so much to that character. So bring in a hilarious Hannigan, someone who can really sell it. Body type is just so unimportant for this role. You can have a tall, thin, wiry Hannigan. You can have a plump Hannigan. You can have a short, tall, it doesn't matter. Just somebody who can really bring the comedy and delight the audience with a complexity that I think is missing in some Hannigans. The last non-negotiable that I think is really important for Annie is to have a large cast. So when you initially do some research into the musical, you'll notice there's about 8 main parts. But there are actually small bit role speaking parts throughout the show, short little solos in some of the songs, just a line or two, which make it great for bringing in a really cool chorus. And so I think of this musical as a large cast musical. It can be done with a smaller chorus. If you had about 5 adults and about 5 children, that could be a runaround chorus that could really play a lot of roles. That would also work, but you could have up to 60 people in this show. It's an excellent large cast musical. So just make sure you're thinking about the casting a lot when you think about this one. Notice I didn't say anything about Warbucks. We'll talk about Warbucks a little bit later. Public service announcement. Do not ignore your responsibility to pay royalty and licensing fees to produce whatever play it is you want to produce. If you want to perform Annie in front of an audience or use the music or lyrics or script, you need to go and request a license to do that from Music Theater International. It's really easy to do it. All you have to do is go online. It's as easy as ordering books from your favorite online bookstore. So just go ahead and pay those royalties. It's very easy and it's the right thing to do. Here are some scenes to consider when you're thinking about the production of Annie. The one that will take the most set and probably the most resources when it comes to just creatively setting the stage, because you're probably going to want levels and you need to make it look like an expensive place. Of course, I'm talking about Warbucks' mansion, and especially the scene, I think I'm gonna like it here. So you need a lot of space for dancing, you need a lot of space for movement, but you also want to portray a very rich atmosphere. So I have some really easy tips for that.
I'm going to do a little drawing here just for fun. So if you do have kind of that classic proscenium stage, this is a front view of the stage, okay? And here's my audience down here. Then one thing that you can do is if you have wings, you know, obviously things can roll in from this direction or this direction and that sort of thing. One thing that I've done in the past is kind of create a staircase that comes down, have some railing. So we've got this kind of like half round staircase. And then if you can, build up area up here. So we've got kind of like what looks like a hallway with railings here, and then we can have action here. So that means that, you know, you're having servants coming up and down the stairs with their trays of things and boxes and whatever they're offering to Annie or suggesting about Annie. And then you've got actors walking here and there, back and forth. So you can see, obviously I'm not getting a lot of depth on this, but you can see that a lot of it then is kind of kept to, you know, your upstage areas. And then you've got all this, you know, if you call this stage here, you've got all this stage down here for choreography. This is a great way of kind of representing the mansion. I've seen people do it in a lot of different ways. If you want to do it flat, you can. It's just a good opportunity to do levels when you're trying to show the wealth of someone. You know, that big old fun staircase is a great way to do that. If you're just wanting to do a flat stage, you could try to do some like pillars and create depth with some pillars, you know, so you've got your kind of upstage and downstage set of pillars and kind of like showing the depth there. Maybe it depends on, you know, where your audience is sitting. If your audience is leveled, then they might be able to see like a cool, you know, checkered floor or rugs or something like that. So obviously everybody's theater space is different, but you don't have to do a ton of things. We don't want to fill it up just because that is just going to take away from space for choreography. Although when you are in the end and we're having our Christmas celebration in the end, and New Deal for Christmas is the title, I think. Then, you know, you can obviously bring in like a cool Christmas tree, you know, stuff like that if you have space. But if you fill this up with furniture, I think that's going to be a big mistake. So Warbucks' mansion, probably your biggest set situation. You're going to want to think about that.
Next, you also want to think about Hooverville. Hooverville is a scene that can be done with either a small or large piece of the chorus. This is the scene where it's essentially people who have been left behind on the fringes because of some of Hoover's policies during this time period. And so these homeless encampments were called Hoovervilles, named after that president at that time. And so it's important to portray that these people are down and out, but also give them a sense of dignity in their outrage and almost protest in the song. So it has a very powerful feeling in the music. And I think that can be portrayed very easily as far as bringing in like movable props and things like that. In the cabinet scene, there's a lot of ways to do this. You can of course have a traditional like table setting for your cabinet, but you don't have to do that. One thing that you can do is to have all of your cabinet members stand, or maybe have a row of chairs. There's so many ways to approach this creatively, and I would really recommend using a lot of movement and a lot of fun for these scenes. Of course, the cabinet, they have some discussion and just straight lines, and then they also have a song. And so some sort of setting where you can easily transition between that setup. So maybe the table is all pieces and it comes apart, and the different cabinet members can pull it apart and turn it and create a more leveled sort of thing for a big finale kind of number, is what it feels like. So that's one recommendation. More simple recommendation could be just having one big table that's sturdy enough that maybe someone could stand up on, crawl under. You know, there's just some really fun and funny ways. We want to portray this cabinet as excitable, as fun-loving. So they're serious at first, and then they maybe take themselves a little less seriously as the number goes on, and so it's a lot of fun. Of course, we have NYC, which can also be daunting. I would say as far as blocking, this one is fairly daunting, was fairly daunting for me in the couple of times that I have produced this show. I felt like it was important to get a sense of movement. You're on the street, but taking it so literally as like this is the street and I need to have them like on one side of the street or the other, I think is a mistake. Try to make your NYC very mobile. So again, have fun with sandwich board signs. Have fun with, moving taxis or buildings that, maybe your actors are walking in place and the buildings are moving around you. Have fun with light up elements. I would say this can be a really fun part of your show. Don't let it be daunting, and don't worry too much about the set in this part. You don't need to have a huge backdrop with cityscape and all that sort of thing for this show at all, really. Maybe in the mansion you need to do a little building, and we talked about that, but for NYC, I feel like you can do a bare stage and have a lot of character movement and use that. Maybe a park bench, nothing that's just enormous. You might have a big cutout of the Statue of Liberty, something like that, but none of that is non-negotiable. All of it can be done in a modular way, in a way that doesn't have to be stagnant and won't cost a lot of money and won't cost a lot of time or energy. Put your energy into the movement. Put your energy into your actors, because that's really where your audience gets its energy from. In the orphanage, don't worry about building bunk beds or having a bunch of beds. There's so many better ways to do that. Try to think about, rolling up bed rolls and moving blankets and swinging them around, and pillows and wash buckets on the floor, brooms and mops and things like that for Hard Knock Life. Don't worry so much about setting the stage in such a rigid sort of way. Now, if you absolutely have the resources and would like to, it could be beautiful. You could have an awesome orphanage set that moves in and out. Maybe you have a fly system. Many of the places that I've worked and produced in, it's a very small wing space and a backstage, and so there's not a lot of room or ability to really fly things in and out. So if you're working on a budget, you can do this show. This is not out of reach. So let's talk about lighting. Basic lighting will be fine. For NYC, you can have some special Times Square sort of lighting if you would like to, but really in this show, it's such a character-driven show. I would say just if you have the ability to full up, full down, and dim, you're golden. No fancy lighting effects necessary. Not a lot of traditional magic or anything like that that has to come out of this. So this isn't like Cinderella where there's magical things happening, or Wizard of Oz where you need like a dark, scary castle, right? So this is just kind of like daylight, maybe dim for Hooverville, depending on how you do, if you have any fire effects, maybe for Hooverville, you could do something like that. But again, the lighting can be very, very basic. Of course, you can do all of the wild and crazy things if you have the ability, but if you don't worry about that. As far as music, the show can be done with a full orchestra. This show can be done with just an accompanist on piano. I believe that there is a CD from MTI, that's Musical Theater International. Again, and you can rehearse with that CD, and then I believe that you can perform with the CD as well. My word of caution is just make sure that you sync up with any live musicians well before opening and before Tech Week. So whenever you're working on a musical, your musical director and your orchestra conductor are your best friends. And I think a lot of producers and directors get wrapped up in the things that they know and believe that that's the most important thing. They really forget that they need to be consulting their musicians all the time and talking with them about, is this working? What about this vocal piece? I'm asking this actor to dance and sing at the same time. Is this working for you? Talk with your choreographer about that. Also, just giving them enough time and resources to process through what your vision is and giving them that information ahead of time. So I really recommend meeting with them about the scenes before you rehearse them. It can be very frustrating for a musician or a director when they're being asked to produce something that they feel like it's been sprung on them. So give yourself a chance to have your actors and your whole production staff really sync up. So now we come down to what I consider a major negotiable. And I think that this, for a lot of theater companies and a lot of settings, school settings especially, one hang up that a lot of small schools or small companies have is having the right amount of men, and especially men who have the range of talent to be able to sing. So if you're just drawing from a smaller pool, then it's hard. If you only have like 5 guys in your drama department, which one of them is a really amazing singer? And are they getting the same, huge lead roles all the time because they're the only one who can sing? So doing Annie is a great opportunity to have a main character who maybe isn't the greatest singer, but who can pull off a Warbucks. So let me explain what I mean. A lot of times we think of Warbucks, we think he needs to be kind of maybe portly and he needs to be bald. But I think that's a mistake, just thinking of the character, who the character is. Warbucks is wealthy. Warbucks has a big heart. It's a little crusted over, but we see Annie chip away and get to the heart of who that person is. I have had Warbuckses with hair. I have had bald Warbuckses. I've had round face Warbuckses. I've had tall, thin Warbuckses. I've had Warbuckses that could really sing. I've had Warbuckses that can sing, but maybe they aren't the top soloist. So choose a Warbucks that can warm your heart. And again, through his solo and short pieces that he does sing, he can boo his way through it. As long as he can carry a tune and you can really give him the confidence. This doesn't need to be somebody who is necessarily a Broadway star. I think that it's more important for the audience to be charmed by the relationship between Annie and Warbucks. And so look at your Annie and your Warbucks side by side, make sure they have a great chemistry and have that sort of father-daughter love that is so charming and so wonderful for this show. And Annie will be a delight for you. I'm certain that I didn't cover everything, so if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Right, York?